This is Fred Beck from Fred Talks Fighting. Today I'm very lucky, joined by post-fight Lyndon Arthur and Andy Yarde by Mr. Andy Clarke. Andy, how have you been?
Yeah, good thanks. Good night tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, certainly. It's been a very good night of fights. So we'll start with the main event, Lyndon Arthur versus Andy Yarde. Did it kind of go as you thought?
Well, beforehand I was asked for a prediction, which I don't normally give if I'm commentating on a fight, but I thought Arthur might win again. I thought he might win again on points or maybe late stoppage. I knew that Yarde was going to come out quick. He had to come out quick. I just wasn't convinced that he would have learned as many lessons from the first fight as it turned out that he had, and I'm happy to admit that. I thought that he might be more gung-ho and less kind of economical with the pressure that he brought in those first 3 or 4 rounds. I thought he boxed really, really well. He was different. He didn't just look for those big single shots. He was punching in combination. You know, he was getting his feet closer. He was doing everything he needed to do, and when he got him hurt, he is a really good finisher. So full credit to him. I thought it was a really, really good performance. You've got to give a lot of credit to Tunde Ajayi as well, because he's had a lot of criticism. And Lyndon Arthur can come again, but you know that was a heavy defeat.
Yeah, certainly. Do you think the addition of James Cook made a lot of difference?
Yeah, I'd have thought so. You make these kinds of changes and additions for a reason, and he's an enormously experienced guy. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. He'll just say exactly what he feels, and I think if you're the trainer, if you're Tunde Ajayi, I think that shows some confidence, some kind of security in yourself, that you're happy to say, okay, listen, I might need somebody else, another pair of eyes, because a lot of trainers won't do that. They think it's a sign of weakness, if you like. So it's been a long year for them since that first defeat, and yeah, as I said, the performance was very good. He had to win tonight, Yarde. He absolutely had to. If he'd lost again, I mean, his career was in pieces, really, if he'd lost again. Not because losing to Lyndon Arthur some kind of disgrace. It's not by any stretch, but given where he wants to be, which is challenging for world titles, if you've lost twice for a Commonwealth title, then quite simply you would have to face the fact that you're not as good as you thought you were.
Do you think Andy Yarde might start mixing up with the other kind of British light heavyweights, or do you think he'll kind of go back to world level and try to gain a world title?
I think he'll wait for that world title fight now, because Lyndon Arthur was number one with the WBO, so he'll take that ranking, and then he'll look to try and get the fight with the winner of Joe Smith against Callum Johnson, because Callum Johnson, that's a voluntary, so they might call a mandatory straight after that, and if you're number one, then that should be you. That almost always will be you, so he'll wait for that, I think. I'd love it if all of those light heavies, those British fighters, we had Buatsi just a couple of rows behind us, Dan Aziz just sitting behind us tonight, Craig Richards I saw a couple of weeks ago, Callum Smith, John Ryder's at light heavy now, Craig Richards, I'm probably missing somebody out, but they could all it'd be great if they could all get in a mix, but you've always got the normal problems of different promoters and different platforms and all of that.
Yeah, a tournament between all of them would be quite nice, but now I've asked you where Andy Yarde kind of goes from here. Where do you think Lyndon Arthur goes from here?
If I were him, I would want to try and challenge for a British title. He's won a Commonwealth title. He'd done nothing wrong before tonight. I would want to try and challenge for a British title. He's won a Commonwealth, see if he can add that British. Dan Aziz is open to fighting absolutely anybody. We know that. And promotionally, he's a free agent, so he could go wherever he chose. Yeah, it's a difficult defeat to take for Lyndon Arthur, because he's been stopped, and a first defeat of any description is always hard. So you never quite know how somebody's going to react.
Anyway, then Yarde did get stopped, and he did definitely come back. Obviously, Kovalev did stop him. And just one more fight I want to talk about on the card: Hamzah Sheeraz versus Bradley Skeet. We'll start with the kind of controversial moment, I would call it, where Hamzah hit him when he was down. Did you think Hamzah could have been disqualified from that at all?
Well, he definitely could have been disqualified. When it happened in real time, I was just picking the bones out of it on TalkSport, just explaining what was happening, basically. So the knockdown was fine. That was a knockdown. But then he hit him late. when he was obviously down. He hit him 2 or 3 times, and hitting a man when he's down that's one of the original 7 rules of the prize ring from 1743. That's how long that rule's been in there. And it was obvious that it hit him late, and you couldn't really argue that it was part of a combination that he just couldn't quite pull the punch. It was very clear. It was very, very clear that he was on a knee, and he hit him 2 or 3 times. And the final punch, I think, did have quite an impact on him. So I think the referee probably should have disqualified him. But in that instance, I can always understand why he doesn't, because he just does whatever he feels is the best thing to do. And as it was kind of unfolding, I did think that he would do what he did, which was take the point. But I think if Bradley Skeet had made a bit bigger a deal of it, then that could have had an impact. But you know, he's a really good sportsman, Bradley, and he wanted to fight on. He decided he wanted to fight on. I think if he decided to not play at, because he was properly hit, but if he decided, no, listen, this needs to be a disqualification, he probably could have got it.
Say Bradley Skeet could have continued. Would it have gone to decision, or would Hamzah just been disqualified?
In that situation, they would have had to have disqualified. Hamzah Shiraz. You do see instances sometimes where someone's maybe hit late or they hit low and they go down and they stay down, and it's difficult to tell sometimes whether they're actually really as hurt as they're making out or whether they've seen an opportunity to win by disqualification. But in that instance there, I don't think you could really have claimed that, because he was so obviously hit late 2 or 3 times. I think if he'd stayed down, Bradley Skeet, but it's just not in his nature. He just wouldn't do it. You see, that's not who he is. That's not what fighters do. But in that situation, had he not been able to continue, he would have had to have disqualified Shiraz.
All right, and obviously Hamzah Shiraz training over the States. Where do you think he goes from here? Do you think he tries and gets the challenge to the British title now?
So he was put in the final eliminator with Anthony Fowler. Fowler pulled out of that to box Liam Smith instead. So Hamzah, as far as I know, could be in line for another final eliminator. But if he got put in that, I think he would pull out. I think he would have pulled out of the fight with Fowler if Fowler hadn't. Troy Williamson is the British champion, and he's another Frank Warren fighter. So I don't necessarily see them wanting to do that. So I think he might just look to try and box for a WBO Intercontinental or International and get that WBO ranking up, you know, as high as they can get it, rather than look for the British at the minute.
As long as they're staying active, and that's what's important. But you got anything else coming up on the radar for the next few months, Andy, before the year ends, or the next month or so? Less than a month now, really.
So I'm going to Kiev. I'm going to Kiev in 2 weeks with K2 Promotions with Team Usyk. They've got a card on over there which is on ESPN Plus. So I'm doing that. I'm looking forward to that. Even though, you know, travel's getting slightly more difficult again, but I've never been to Kiev. I've been to Ukraine before, but I've never been to Kiev. So yeah, Kiev at Christmas should be good. Business
class at all?
Say again?
Is it business class?
Remains to be seen. It's the first time I work for them, so I don't know.
You never know. Now you got Alexander Usyk as heavyweight champion. You might start going business class, which would be obviously quite nice. But Andy, we'll catch up soon, mate. Thanks for your time again. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Awesome.